All right, good morning. This is OB Coffee Talk live from Chicago and live from Owensboro. We are conference calling in, connecting via the awesome iPhone. And this morning we will be discussing Matthew 26 and Multiply 4.3. And so thanks for joining us, and we look forward to the discussion this morning. And if you listen later this week, we appreciate you making this ministry a success. Are you there?
Yeah.
It just sounds like it sounds like it's feedbacking. We're getting some kickback.
How's that?
That's better.
Is that better?
Yeah, way better.
I put it down the phone right back into the speaker. Okay. I fixed it. I'm a sound professional.
All right. Who wants to start us off on Matthew 26?
I'll start us off here. I really like verse 8 there, where they couldn't see that God would use things. They were thinking that this was wasteful, what was being done. And I was thinking, how often do I think of things as insignificant or as being flat out wasteful? But God can use really trash or our best offering, either one, for His glory. And I think that's something to keep in mind. I'm first with the trash.
Yeah, how often we think things are a waste. How often we think, well, that's a worthless piece of whatever. And we'll either throw it out when, in reality, God can use anything.
Yes, that's what we feel too.
That sounds so weird.
I just wonder too if they work that way because of the environment is they just aren't able to approach this woman anyway. Just from being possibly her profession she had or whatever, and they just maybe didn't have love for her, and they had just been talking like this. Who knows? Do you think the disciples were the only 6%ers? They only gave 10%, nothing more. Because the Greek Catholics should give more than 10%, right?
Yeah, that would be interesting because she almost outgave the disciples.
Yep. You look at verse 12 too, that Jesus foretelling his burial. What I'm saying here, you would think that they would be kind of taken aback by that comment because they were previously, right? And Jesus' comments about them not really understanding you, but they didn't love question at this time. You think by this time they've kind of got, okay, they're thinking it again. They kind of become numb to the fact that he's predicting. They don't really think it's going to happen anymore. I think they don't want to think about it. I think they probably know that he's telling the truth, but they're like, yeah, we're just going to ignore this stuff.
Yeah, I would say they're ever more confused, especially now the third time. Maybe they're even more confused. Maybe they're numb to it. Maybe who knows what could happen with this. The prediction again. I guess this would be the third prediction of his death, and now a woman's anointing him before his death, and I would say they're more confused than anything about what's about to take place. I thought verse 16 was
out of indictment against Christianity. And if Judas thought an opportunity to betray Jesus, and he took that opportunity, he seized that opportunity, and he spent his time looking for an opportunity, working against Christ, that's a lot of work. And how many of us are willing to put that work to seek an opportunity to live for Christ instead of to betray him or to witness for him? Because we don't put forth as much work, it seems, as the betrayer did.
That's very true, because what we don't have is the time between the money given and what went on, and we just have a little bit of time of the betrayal, because you have the Passover, you have the Lord's Supper, you have Peter's denial, then you have the betrayal. So there could be a time period in there where we don't know how hard he actually worked to actually betray him, to figure out a way to do this.
Yeah, since it's not chronological, Judas could have done this, when Jesus said the Passover, the one that to dip in their hand with me or whatever. Judas could have done this 2 months ago, or he could have did it who knows how long ago. And he still walks with him, but he was looking for an opportunity, a purpose opportunity. That's really, I thought, super powerful. It would be a weird relationship, especially with Jesus actually, if he knows about it. Think about you think about what Jesus is thinking when he knows that Jesus knows. Right? Okay. That was that. What you did?
Yeah.
You just cracked. You put one of those.
But think about think about this. How hard Judas had to work against Christ, but today we don't really have to work that hard against Christ. All we have to do is profess Christianity and don't do anything that Christianity tells us to do. But how much harder it is to profess Christ and to promote Christ and to show people the love of Christ, how much more difficult that is. Because how many people deny Christ, that are sitting in our pews today, and how easily and unconsciously they do that. Yeah, I'm right here. You all there? Is it working?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I mean, think about Peter. We talk about Judas betraying Jesus. Think about how much Peter betrayed Jesus, and how easy it was for him to do that. He denied him 3 times without batting an eye.
He wasn't speaking to.
Every day with our
It's almost like if you're not seeking an opportunity to live for Christ, then you are by default seeking an opportunity to live against Him. But Peter, I don't know if he was on his guard or if he was just not prepared. He should have been prepared, but he still failed. So it's no different than Judas' denial. Well, a little different than how it played out, but.
Yeah, and how funny is it that in the garden, he said he was telling them to pray so they don't succumb to temptation, so they don't fall into sin, and how quick they fell into sin immediately once Judas came.
I picture at the end of the broad path was this big black hole that's sucking everybody in. At the end of the narrow path, you have to work your way against that black hole's gravity pull, and that's why it's hard and difficult. And at the end of that is hyperspace and Ewoks, Yahweh's out there, all that other stuff. But that's the way I think about it. You have to work against the pull of gravity and inertia and everything else. Entropy. They're big words. Those are hashtags.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Is that we're trying to work away from the broad path and trying to get into the narrow path, obviously by the grace of Jesus Christ. But how easy the broad path is to just fall into, because Peter did that very thing and he walked with Jesus for 3 years, and it didn't take him but an hour after Jesus was betrayed to deny him 3 times.
It's kind of like a garden, right? You don't have to do anything to get weeds. They're going to come up. And you want the garden to be clean and fruitful. You got to go work at it. That's true. We're all about that garden. Garden. I think that it seems to me that they may be designed by God like that on purpose, because God being our God of love, and He wants communion with us. He wants that communication, and He wants us to talk to Him and worship Him and be family members, and so you have to stay in. Just try, right? You have to try. You got to try. You got to talk to Him and worship Him, and so many times I've denied Christ, not really deliberately, and didn't realize I did it until after it was done. Just because I wasn't in the Spirit at the moment. I just had gotten lazy, if you will. Even in Eden, they had to work. They weren't just going around. They had to get in the land and have communion with God. It's true. Good one, God. Oh, Stevie, you always take out the big buck.
Yeah.
Exactly. Fill our cavity.
Yeah.
Okay. That should be your coffee talk. I'm going to hit you on it. I'm going to change my name to Booger Eyes.
Okay, that sounds great. We can do that. I'm thinking about Jesus' prayer in the garden and how he knew exactly the will of the Father, and he prayed that this cup would pass from him. But how often we often know what to do, but we don't ever pray for the cup to pass. We just pray that, God, if this is what you're calling me to do, give me the strength to do it. And we'll continue to pray and continue to pray and continue to pray and never, ever do it. We'll never follow through with it, knowing really what we're supposed to do, but saying, I don't know if God's calling me to that or not. I don't know. That might be a little bit too much.
Sometimes I feel like that's the hardest part. Sometimes I feel like getting up to that decision is just the hardest part. Sometimes it's whenever I make the decision, it's all downhill from there. You know you're going to do it. And sometimes it's just dread. I don't want to do this. I really don't want this cup. I don't want to drink this cup. And actually doing it is putting off. I guess it depends on what the situation is for myself. But a lot of times once I make my mind up about something, it's easy. I think there are multiple times throughout the path of each road where they intersect. I think just because you chose the narrow path at one point doesn't mean that you get to the next intersection, you're going to choose the narrow path. I think it's a conscious decision. Every time you come to an intersection, are you going to choose the narrow path or are you going to choose the wide path? Because it's so easy to fall away. I mean, like, you think of a road, if you choose one path and go the other way, the only way to get back onto the other path is if they meet again. And so, we'll go backward.
Yeah, that's true.
When he's there praying, the disciples, they're a little tired and sleepy. I'm wondering if it's an analogy of how they're kind of separating themselves from Jesus a little bit, too.
Well, obviously this was the unknown. We have hindsight as 2020, but the unknown will be, they don't know what it meant for him to be betrayed. They didn't know what the next step was going to be, and that makes it extremely difficult and confusing, obviously, because if you knew what the next step was going to be, if you knew what it was going to look like for Jesus to be crucified and to be handed over and betrayed like he was in an illegal manner, they might have viewed this a little bit differently, but this was the first time they had seen this, as and this is reality. This is what's set in. This is what he's taught us all along.